I want to welcome you to the second month of Overflow practices. My name's Cody. I'm one of the pastors on staff here.
And I'm Campbell, and I'm one of the high school associates.
We are so excited that you are embarking on this incredible journey of spiritual formation together.
This past month, we've been practicing prayer as a church and in our groups, and I hope it's been enriching and nourishing to your soul. We're now heading into our second practice, and it's one that I deeply love. We're going to be practicing Sabbath this month. And in a world that moves at the speed of light, the idea of Sabbath can be a rather foreign concept and word to us. It can be overwhelming to try to think of trying a Sabbath, but it's our hope that you come to know what Sabbath is and how it's actually possible in the 21st century.
In her book, Keeping the Sabbath Holy, Marva Dawn, she describes Sabbath as a day to cease not only from work itself, but also from the need to accomplish and be productive, from the worry and tension that accompany our modern criterion of efficiency, from our efforts to be in control of our lives, essentially as if we are God. I mean, she goes on to say, a great benefit of Sabbath keeping is that we learn to let God take care of us, not becoming passive or lazy, but in the freedom of giving up our feeble attempts to be God in our own lives. I mean, can you imagine a day, a period of time, and moments that have the power to do that and so much more? This is our desire for you, that you would embrace the Sabbath however it will look in your life so that you might experience your soul being refreshed and your cup overflowing. This is what this year is meant to do.
The idea of Sabbath may be new to you. So where do we read about it in the Bible, and what does Sabbath mean? So Sabbath comes from a Hebrew verb, Shabbat, which is a word that literally means to cease or rest. We first hear about Sabbath in Genesis in the creation story. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 2 through 3, it says, "By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the seventh day he rested from all of his work. Then God blessed the day, and he made it holy, because on it he rested from all of the work of creation that he had done." Rest and Sabbath were literally woven into creation. It was part of God's rhythm, and it's his desire that we have a day and a time to rest and direct our minds and hearts to him. In fact, throughout the Old Testament, Sabbath is actually mentioned 104 times. Sabbath is one of the 10 Commandments. And rest is a command from God. It's not a suggestion. Later in the New Testament, Jesus says that he is the Lord of the Sabbath. So Sabbath is clearly important to God. But is it important to us? Y'all, we live in a world that idolizes busyness and makes us even feel guilty for resting. The Sabbath is literally made for us, and more importantly, it's holy. It's not always easy to rest and slow down. In fact, if you've never taken a Sabbath, it can feel overwhelming. So we want to help you in this, and we want to provide some practical steps and insight into how you might engage in the practice. So let's hear more from Cody about this.
One of the greatest challenges we face in light of the Sabbath days is actually slowing our pace of life down. I mean, we move at such a rapid pace that causes us to go from one thing to the next, overscheduling our lives. And even in the quiet moments we have, we tend to fill them with noise. And for many of us, going from never slowing down to trying to create space to do so, it can be a really big leap. So what can you do? What can I do to practice the Sabbath day? Well, for starters, I would encourage you to ease into this practice and take small steps at first. Instead of taking a full 24-hour Sabbath, you could try carving out a couple hours on a Sunday. If you work at a church like myself, Sundays wouldn't be the best day to do this, so pick a day or times that work best for you. I mean, you may be ready to try and take a full 24-hour Sabbath, others a half day, and even others just a couple or a few hours, and that's okay. This can be done by going on a walk and talking to God. It can be done in the comfort of your home or in the quietness of your backyard, or you can find a quiet spot like the Chattahoochee Coffee House, one of my favorite places. It doesn't matter where you go, as long as you're able to shift your focus from doing and working to a time of being restored, slowing down, and connected and centered on God. I'll usually spend the early morning hours of my Sabbath day near the Chattahoochee, either hiking or walking and really listening to God. This fills my cup. For some, that may feel like a lot of work. And if that's the case, don't do it. Do what fills your cup. But one of the best ways you can ease into this practice is simply by eliminating things that consume or take up your time. This can be anything from social media to TV to work and anything and beyond. So try to eliminate things in your life in order to create space and time with God. So ease into this practice and take small steps towards Sabbath.
In Mark 2, Jesus tells the religious leaders of his time that Sabbath was made for man. It was a gift to us. Jesus' invitation is, "Come to me, all who are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." He will give us rest. Psalm 23 says, "He makes me lie down in green pastures." He makes me. Amidst a culture that never stops running and worships the hustle, the Lord has prepared a green pasture for us to rest in. But sometimes he has to make us rest, command us to stop, because it's often not until we stop that we look up. There's a story in the book of Luke, chapter 10, when Jesus is visiting two women in their home. One woman, Martha, is running around trying to get things on her to-do list done. And the text says that she's very distracted. Meanwhile, Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus. Martha comes in and says, "Lord, why don't you tell her to help me?" And his response is, "Martha, you are anxious and worried about many things, but only one thing matters. And it's what Mary has chosen, to be present with Jesus." Did you hear that? Jesus says only one thing is important, and it's sitting at his feet. Being still, stopping our work, and resting is a gift that we get to participate in. Throughout Jesus' time on earth, he healed many people on the Sabbath, and he still heals people today on the Sabbath. In Isaiah 30, verse 15, it says, "In returning and rest is your strength. In quietness and trust, you shall be saved." When we stop and create space for the Holy Spirit to work in our hearts, without the distraction and the noise from the outside world, he brings healing and the strength and the restoration that we are all desperately seeking. We need the Sabbath for the sake of our souls, for our families, our friends, and all of those that we come in contact with in this world. How on earth do you possibly live out the gospel if your pace of life has no time to be filled with the one who breathed life into you? It doesn't work. You need Sabbath, which is why I need Sabbath, and it was made for us. God, in all his goodness and sovereignty, gave this day to us, knowing we need time and rest to recharge for the week ahead. So, embrace this practice and the gift that it is to us.
It's interesting that God uses the word holy in reference to the Sabbath. Holy comes from the Hebrew word kadash, which means special or uncommon. And if you think about the idea of slowing down, resting, it really is uncommon to do that nowadays. So you don't have to look too far to see how uncommon this is. For example, as you drive down the road, every restaurant, every fast food place is open on Sunday except for one, Chick-fil-A. Uncommon. In fact, Truett Cathy made the decision to close on Sundays in 1946 because he saw the importance of closing on Sundays so that not only he, but his employees could set aside one day to rest and worship if they choose. And of course, Sunday is usually the one day we really want that sandwich or shake from there. But as Campbell highlighted, we need to Sabbath. In fact, we need Sabbath. One of the most powerful aspects of it is that what we're doing is that we're practicing what we're going to be doing in eternity. We'll be with God permanently, forever. And so when we spend time slowing down and intentionally being with him, we're really practicing what is to come. In fact, Revelation 21 reminds us of this as it says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw a holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people. He's going to dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. There will be a day when we will experience the presence of God permanently. And in the meantime, we get to discover this holy time given to us to focus on him, helping us practice what we'll be doing in eternity.
We hope and pray that Overflow continues to enrich your life and that you continue to grow in Christ. So Cody, what's next?
Well, now is the time you'll head into your group together. Your group activity is going to be focused on looking at your week ahead, listing the ways you can create space and time to Sabbath. Even if you're starting out trying 2 hours, half a day, a full day of Sabbath rest, as you head into this practice, just be aware of your week. What tends to be your busiest days? What tasks or behaviors can you eliminate or free up to create more of that space and time? I mean, for example, you might try deleting social media on Sundays if that's your day to choose, or try to Sabbath that day. We've given you a list of helpful ideas to practice Sabbath. But our hope is that this month, that you ease into this practice, take small steps towards Sabbath, recognize the Sabbath is for us, and that we are essentially practicing what we're going to be doing in eternity.
So we want to leave you with a prayer and a verse for your month. This comes from Isaiah 58, verses 13 through 14. It says, "If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, if you honor it by not going on your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken."
We hope you enjoy your group time together. Find rest in the Lord this month, and we look forward to hearing all that God does in your life through the practice of Sabbath.